Children of punsters of Reddit, when did you find out about your mom/dad's career choice? How do you believe it affected your social life? Did your school friends know? I found out by looking through my dad's old stash of pun. Turns out, more than half of the movies in his box also star him. Straight pun. In case anyone was wondering. Edit. First time Reddit use of an edit due to the vast majority of comments. Damn. No, my username is not a result of that incident, but rather a coincidence. If you ever have heard of bad not good, it's a play on the name of the group along with a joke from a few years ago I had with some close friends. Also for the dude who asked if I inherited his dong size. Let's just say, I love my father deeply. Thanks for my first gold. Did you at least inherit his punster penis? Finally it's my time to shine. And I can only do so with a throwaway. Goodbye sweet karma. So yeah, my mother is a pun actress. She hasn't been my whole life, but she previously was already a stripper. I never got the explanation about how/why she made the evolution from first form to ultimate transformation, though. When I was a young kid she used to told me she was a dancer. I never went to her workplaces, but more recently I've been able to know where they were. And I also now have very serious doubts about some of my then babysitters, who probably were co-workers of my mother. Around me being 11 years old, I did got what kind of dance my mother was doing at that time. She told me she has been asked to star in a movie, and she was thinking about accepting. I didn't thought much of it at first, but I know that very quickly her work schedule changed, and she explained that was because she became a full-time actress. It took me about 6 months, something like that, to know a bit more about life, and I remember quite vividly the time I asked her. It was in the car. She was getting me back home after my swimming practice, and I asked her, totally out of the blue, "That's pun movies that you play in, right?" She looked back at me through the inside mirror of the car, and I never saw her face like that. It was not exactly shame, but I still don't know what it was. Perhaps it was a mix of relief and fear. It has been the only time I've seen this expression on her face. She nodded yes to me. Because of the expression, I knew it was like a decisive time. So I just went full sincere and answered okay, cool. Can we eat at McDonald's? Sincerely, it would have been far worse even just a year later. At that moment, I still was a real kid. Never masturbated or anything. And, well, that was my mom. She was taking care of me, by herself, for everything since my appearance in this world, and I was sincerely okay with her job. If I had been a full-on bratty teenager when I got the truth, I probably would have been more pissed than that. My mom is still professionally active today, and she's quite a forbidden topic with my friends. I never had to tell it, though. They just never try this angle, even when drunk or upset at me. I love them, and I love my mother, even though it's really a turn off when I stumble upon her work while trying to find solo time visual support. She has cancelled so much of my erections. Edit. Thanks a lot for all the incredibly positive reactions. Reddit. I was fearing a lot of bad jokes and even more very negative judgments, but you provided quite the exact opposite. I've been adamant about being on my mom's side for all my life, and I never doubted of it. But sometimes it's just very sweet and heartwarming to see people getting it. Just to answer the 3 points that have been brought up the most. 1. My username has actually been made especially for this thread, so it's normal, it fits just right. 2. No, I will not tell you my mother work name. 3. Yes, I got that McDonald's. Thanks again. I will try to answer the last few questions now. Well, nobody else seems to have any real experience here, so I'll chime in. My mother was a Miss Nude World champion, was a penthouse pet, and from what I hear, did some solo pun, which was supposedly very softcore. I always knew, well, at least as far back as I could know I suppose, when I was a kid, I always met my mom's friends, and quickly knew their titles as well. Oh, she's Miss such and such of so and so magazine. The rest of the family knew too, and they hated it. We've always been somewhat separate from them because of it. The problem was never me knowing so much, as other kids finding out. I learned early not to tell anyone. Every few years word would get around on the playground, and fist fights would start. It wasn't until high school though, that some of the other students were 18 and could go to the strip club my mother worked at. More fights. All in all, it made me pretty ducked up. My standards for what women should look like are incredibly high. I was told my entire life, while seeing pictures of my mom's friends naked, this isn't a sexual. That ducked me up. I get practically no arousal from seeing a woman naked. I don't trust other men. I think we are all motivated by sex. Or at least that's how I've seen it my whole life. This makes me a very jealous boyfriend. I once did a photo shoot with Janine Linda Mulder. That's the chick from the cover of the Blink 182 album dressed as a nurse. She did hardcore pun and was popular around the same era my mom was. During the shoot, she asked me how my mom told me. I told her and asked if she'd told her kids. To which she responded no. They found out though when one of them saw one of my videos at a friend's house. Always thought about that and how glad I was to have always known what my mother did. Much better than stumbling into it the other way. Anyway, that's my experience. Edit 1. Looks like I got the year wrong and accidentally doxed a known punster. So there's that. Edited to remove incorrect data. Edit 2. I see they've harvested my words for an article. My fault for making it all seem negative. It wasn't. I traveled America. I got a good education. Never been arrested. No drug addictions. Never molested. And kids from much more normal backgrounds can't even claim all that sometimes. I can't complain. But the context of the question merited the response that I wrote. When I was a teenager, I very casually knew who Hefner's sons. Their mom had been a playmate, and this was around the time of Girls Next Door, so their dad was obviously dating playmates. They were super quiet about it and didn't really bring it up. But one time, when pressed, they were just very matter of fact. It was a business, and their parents were business people. And to think that the images of them that we knew were in any way related to who they were as real people was probably very wrong. The main thing I got out of it was whose email address, or the one that Mary, his secretary, checked, and I was able to interview him about the journalism that was in Playboy. If you have never read the articles, you should. Especially back in the day, there were top writers doing incredible work there. In high school I found my dad's Playboy stash. Spanned from about 1980 to 1995. Goddamn, the articles were amazing. I had internet pun then, so the nudes weren't anything special, but I think I read just about every article available. One time at lunch, me and my nerdy friends sat crouched around the lunch table reading an interview with Stephen Hawking. Great read, but I shudder to think what would have happened had we been caught. Not a punster, but a friend of mine growing up's mom was in Playboy. Everyone knew about it. We all saw the pictures, of course. She was trying to get into acting, and I guess had a few small roles, but it never took off. She got married, settled down, and moved on. I was about 12ish when I found out, but the rumor going around was that she just owned it. Told some of her friends, and it got around, and that was that. Everyone was like, okay, cool. No scandal. People just got on with their lives, and it became a funny story of her crazy Hollywood days. My friend was pretty athletic and good looking. The father was a college football player, if I recall, before going into business. And the mom was well in Playboy after all, so he was popular enough that no one really gave him shit about it besides the occasional MILF joke, which he just took in stride. They were a cool family. Let us drink at their place in HS, as long as we spent the night. Waiting to hear about the kid who fapped to his mom. Well, we've all done that before, right? Guys, Freud would be proud. My mother is a specialist in artificial insemination for cows in New Zealand. Watched a video of her jacking off a big Hereford bull in agriculture class. My friend turned to me and said, "Your mum really knows how to work her wrist." Apostrophe. Can confirm. My mom was a punster and still has various ties to the industry. Growing up was pretty normal aside from her being gone at weird times. I suppose the industry lead her to be kinda wild and crazy. It took me a while to really understand what she was. I have very early memories of seeing hundreds of pun videos lying around her office. Honestly, children are just blind. I will say that being around that environment started me being asexual at an early age. Once I was older, I kinda used it to brag to my friends. It was a secret that only my close friends knew, but one that I didn't feel the need to be embarrassed by. She was called the hot mom. It kinda just became a norm. I was very successful with women during my younger years, 13. But due to a whole host of other issues during high school, was less successful with women. I'm currently in a very successful 9-year relationship with my GF. Overall, I feel like I'm relatively unscathed. It's just something my mom did. I did stumble upon a video of her once and quickly exited the site. I had a friend in high school whose dad was a pun star back in the day. I think we talked about it once, friend and I, and he might have mentioned it once later in the years I was friends with his daughter. It was never a big deal though. Her parents were super cool and never bugged us. They let us drink and roam around the neighborhood as long as we were on foot and spend the night at the house. I think we had to be in by 1, but we could stay up all night and eat all the snacks and have fun because they lived on the 2nd floor and she had the basement. They'd hang out too, but definitely gave is the space to be teenagers as long as we didn't duck it up. I always liked hanging out with her/them. Not pun, but my mom was a prostitute. I found out around sophomore in high school when she told me. None of my friends knew, but now a few do because I've talked to them about it. It kinda ducked with me for a while because I was very conservative about Essex. Grandparents raised me and I was judgmental in my mind, but never to my mom. Now that I'm older, I'm way more accepting of it. Especially when a couple years ago I was struggling to make rent fresh out of high school and was deeply considering Essex work. I did sell a few pairs of used panties and went on a couple dates to make some extra cash for rent, but never had pay for money. Desperation is a hell of a motivator. My first boyfriend in middle school had a punster mom. It was really hard on him. I don't know what broke up his parents, but between a musician and a pun star you don't get much stability. He was kinda depressed, very into grunge rock, and didn't tell anyone about what his mom did except myself and a couple people from our friends group who never told anyone. I didn't think it was that big of a deal until I met her, and she was in fact very stereotypical in her looks and dress. No wonder he didn't want her at our school events. That all being said, she seemed to love him and tried to be a part of his life, which he didn't really want at the time. He seems to be okay now, has dabbled with drugas and being a crusty punk kid hopping trains and such, but based on FB it looks like he found a girl and settled down a little in the last couple years. I think overall it wasn't that she was in pun. It was her lifestyle offset that affected her kid. My mom was a stripper, not a pun star. My mom worked her ass off, literally, to give me as good of a life as she could. She quit a few years into it after she became religious and married another newly religious man. I'm not sure how it would have affected my social life had she continued stripping, but I feel like she would have gotten out of the business even if she didn't marry my stepdad. She liked the money, but I know that the industry seriously depressed her and she felt a lot of shame. She had a really ducked up childhood and did everything she could to protect her kids from having a life like she had. The funny side of it is that she may have met my brother's father in the industry because I found a plagiarism with him on the cover. I think she did a lesser magazine or two as well, but thankfully both were more loincloth type gigs and no full nudity to really duck my eyes up forever. I honestly think that her becoming super religious affected my social life more than anything. I wasn't allowed to officially date until I was 18, and I felt a lot of the usual shame connected to a sexuality that religion can bring. Maya Khalifa went to my rival high school and graduated a couple years before me. Her sister is my age and I can only assume it was torture for her. I found a video of my dad double fisting my mom's asshole on RedTube. Didn't watch, just saw the thumbnail. Didn't really affect me much. Edit. People are asking how I recognized her. Her face was visible, and my dad's was visible in a mirror. Hey, I have a relevant story kinda. So in grade 11 we got to go on a Europe trip with school. While at an internet cafe, one kid discovers photos of a recent graduate of our school on a porn site. Everyone gathers around because she's gorgeous. Here's the kicker, is I'm seeing her younger sister at the time. Needless to say, I get bombarded with questions from everyone and was forced to make a phone call that night to confirm it was the sister. I can't give names or anything because I don't know her pun name. Like this video and this good boy will be your mailman forever. We are Redditation, and we redditate every day. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a wonderful day, you magnificent people.